That is the Believe in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson, Anthony Armstrong, part of the Believe Network. And you said Combine, and that is, of course, underway this week. And, usually the big stories are who's not working out. We did find out one quarterback's going to toss the ball around this week is Ty Simpson out of Alabama. So that's interesting to see. If you're a Commanders fan, frankly, you want somebody out of this pack. I don't know. Is Ty Simpson? Is it, crazy Carson Beck? I don't know. Somebody out of this pack that does wow folks over these next few months. So there is another team that's looking for a quarterback that says, you know what, I need to get in the top 10 to get one of these guys, to get this guy that we think is the diamond in the rough, if you will, at this point. One of the late bloomers of this class, because right now it's a 1 QB class in terms of round one, it looks like, at least the top part of round one, I should say, with Fernando Mendoza. So I'll be interested to see what goes on there. But I want to ask you this as a guy who actually played in the NFL. When you watch the Combine, what that they ask them to do, if any of the events they ask them to do you feel like is beneficial to really getting to know what an NFL prospect looks like? Or do you think most of this stuff is kind of like the Raz Olympics or the Underwear Olympics, whatever you want to call it these days?
Yeah. I think for the most part, a lot of the top players, Scott, you already know what they are. You know who they are.
Sure.
You've seen it on tape. You've seen it on film. They've been beating the drum for these people to be the top picks. And you mentioned Fernando Mendoza, by far and away the favorite still on FanDuel. He's so much of the favorite, Scott. They actually have opened up. You can choose who's going to be the number 2 overall pick, and Arvell Reese leads the way on that one. Okay, so that's how much Fernando has it locked down. But when it comes down to those on the field actions in the Combine, I didn't get to go, and I wish I would have, because guys like me who may not have the best tape, may not be in front of all the big coaches, are going to get an opportunity to be in front of the scouts. And they can line up next to an SEC receiver, right? They can line up next to an SEC quarterback. And maybe that quarterback doesn't throw, but then now you have a little extra zip on your balls. You have a little better arc and touch. Then you obviously, we know when they run a fast 40, what that does for somebody's career. A lot of people get drafted simply off of the fact that they ran really, really fast. And I ain't mad at it at all. When you talk about drills, I think the Combine just seems to kind of confirm what you already knew about some people. It gives some guys an opportunity to show that they've been working on their body after the season. All right, they've shown some changes in their physical stature and that they've been putting in the grind out there on the field with their trainers and whatnot. But each individual drill, there's not one that's going to sit here and say, yeah, that translate. But if I had to get one, I think the DB's weave drill is probably one that's really good. You get to see somebody's hips, how they're able to really turn it in space. Because, hell, I can hide somebody in college. I can hide you in the scheme. I can hide you in that boundary. But now you got to backpedal, you got to turn and weave. That can be really telling. But for the most part, all the hard work is done. Now this is just a confirmation thing. How do I know this guy is really who I think he is?
But as you know, every year, I mean, there's somebody that pops up off of a 40 time or this, the relative athletic score and all this stuff, the RAS, if you will, and gets overdrafted, and they're like, it's on potential, even though we haven't seen the production yet. And it's wild to see it, because all the scouts say exactly what you say. Oh, yeah, man, it's all about the film. That's why I rely on the film. But yet, somehow, some way, between now and draft night, these guys get suckered in, right? The scouts, not just scouts, I should say, really the GMs, the guy who's making the pick, right? They'll get, for whatever it is, it's an interview, is it, whatever they do with the kid off the field, what they see at the Combine or even at the pro day. I mean, when was the last time we said somebody had a terrible pro day, like on their campus? Has that ever happened? I don't even think it happened, right? It's like everybody has a great pro day. It's set up.
Very rarely. The only time you do is like maybe like a receiver or a quarterback that just had a couple of drops, or the throws weren't where you thought they were. But then they usually get a second chance. And then, frankly, a lot of times these teams will look past those pro day performances. And let me ask you this. If you had to choose something, right? Let's say you've scouted a player, you've looked at the tape, and you think this guy is the one, but now you see him in person and this pro day is not so hot. What would be your, flash judgment? Would you take the person off your list, bump them down, or would you still hold true to your scouting?
Right. Well, I think it'd come through a couple things. Like, what was this conference they played in? Like, if say it's a smaller conference or conference that, is not what we expect to be, like great defenses or whatever, and they were an offensive guy putting up numbers, maybe you would have some pause. And especially if, like, they're just not. Like if you're like then doubting, can they get open against NFL corners, right? Or DB, if it's a receiver or somebody like that. And then like, how it is with quarterbacks. I mean, these numbers are whatever, right? Like are they making tight window throws? Or they've got these wide open windows? Are they line of scrimmage passers? And that, by the way, isn't necessarily going to be right with the indicator. I mean, that was one of the knocks on Bo Nix, right? Nobody threw more behind the line passes or at the line passes than Bo Nix. And he looks pretty good in the NFL. I mean, he looks like, he's a pretty damn good NFL quarterback. So you just don't know. I mean, you got to use all of it, everything you can, I suppose, and trust yourself. But I like to think that most of these good GMs have been out on the road, right, during the season and seen guys in person. And you could probably get an idea. I mean, the trained eye, these guys know that, okay, this is something that, will translate in the NFL, and this is something that will not translate in the NFL, right? Like you can kind of watch it. Like I had some questions about Mendoza because I saw him against my college, Old Dominion, in week 1, and they weren't great. Indiana wasn't. I mean, it was a closer game than it probably should have been. But then I watched him as the year goes on, in particular the national title game when he was getting knocked around by that Miami defense, getting hit in the face and hitting late. Then he started throwing them back shoulder suckers, over and over just to keep moving the chains. And he just, he managed the game really well. I know that's kind of like a bad word sometimes for quarterbacks. But I just think, like, you could just see him. He wasn't going to lose the game for them, right? Like, and yet Carson Beck, in a sense, lost the game for Miami, right? By the late turnover. It's just like, but not to say he can't, not to say that Mendoza doesn't make plays, because he does. But I also think the thing that really stood out to me watching him throughout the years, he also doesn't beat his team, right, or put his team in a position where they're going to lose because of boneheaded mistakes. And I think there's something to be said for that too.
100%. I mean, it's like having that game manager, and a lot of times people knock it. They're like, oh, he didn't do that much. I think, like you say, staying out of trouble is a lot of times the best thing you can do. Just stay the hell out of trouble, and let's get the ball back the next time. Tom Brady did it a lot of times. He made some great throws, but you don't sit there and turn on a Tom Brady, like, remember that throw that he didn't, like, you don't have those throws. He operated his offense cleanly, made good decisions. If we went back to the defense, they held it down, and then he came back and got the ball back and then put it back in the end zone. But I think Mendoza's going to be solid. It's just one of those guys that he's not going to be exciting, right? I think all the time with the first round, especially top 10 picks, they're looking for some sort of superhero, superpower.
Upside, yep.
Yeah, like, oh my God, this guy is 6'5" and he can run this fast. But then you look on the tape, you're like, he ain't played but 6 plays, and you're like, yeah, but he could be. And it's like, oh, that's it's tough to pick on could be. And like for me, if I'm picking in the top 10, I want the most surefire player at whatever position it is when we're there. I don't want to be picking at 7 and saying, well, we think this guy can be, so on and so forth. Mike Shanahan used to say, show me what the man can do, not what he can't do. All right, so show me what the person's done, what he's put on tape. Hell, show me how you see you could utilize them to warrant the pick. But I don't really like I don't like the experiments that high, right? I think that's how you got, like Trey Lance got picked so high, right? Because his height got talked up and
not a
got
lot
away
of
from. Yep. Yeah, man, you could have put with somebody else in there. Could have had Patrick Mahomes, but hey, people want to go on these flash runs and assume. Here's the thing: if you're already not good at developing quarterbacks, don't assume that all of a sudden you're gonna just develop that trait. Like a guy doesn't just walk in and all of a sudden become developable. Developed. Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Developable.
Yeah,
but the Trey Lance year is interesting because remember the rumors going into it were that actually Kyle Shanahan liked Mac Jones the most, and instead they decided to trade up and they went for the upside player, and there just wasn't a lot of film, frankly, on Trey Lance. He didn't play that many games at North Dakota State, and then if they would have just stayed back or even moved back and taken Mac Jones, nobody would have blinked an eye, right? It would have been like, okay, and gone that route. But that was not a great quarterback draft, obviously. So, in hindsight, maybe you even just could have kicked the can down the road at that point. Of course, that was a great draft for them because they got Brock Purdy, and Mr. Irrelevant. It worked out well. It wasn't really working the way it's supposed to work out, but it worked out well for them. So it's always one of the fascinating things about how these quarterback situations happen, For you though, is there any part of the combine that you say, "Oh, I have to see this," or do you care about that much?
My favorite is obviously the 40s. You know, I love to see those pop up.
Yeah, 'cause you're a runner, you're fast
guys. But I do like to see the occasional fast big man. You know what I mean? Like, let me see a big D lineman that's running 4.6, 4.7, something like that.
Yeah,
I'm like, hold on, put him on your list, right?
Yeah.
That's somebody that can make a team. That's always funny. Then they do the overlay, like racing against Rich Eisen, which I think is always kind of funny.
Oh yeah.
Another one I like to see. I do like that one that's down the line for receivers where they have to catch the ball to their left and to their right, being able to stay on that yard line as much as possible without wavering. That's something that shows you how somebody's going to be able to attack the ball on like dig routes and crossing routes like that. So that's kind of a fun one to watch. But ultimately, man, they don't have the cameras. At least I haven't watched them on like one specific drill.
Right.
Maybe even every now and again, let me see what that bench press is looking like. There's some random freak out there who's going to put up 40 reps. You know what I mean? And then there's like a random like wide receiver who's going to throw up 25. And you're like, where the hell this guy come from? It's like, he is one step away from playing tight end in this league if he keeps it up. And we need to pay attention to tight ends because there's a couple of them that are not on the list anymore.
Right. Yeah, no, Kyle Pitts gone. He's going to be tagged by the Falcons. I'm not surprised by this, although I did see a lot of people writing about it in terms of the Commanders, and I get it. You got to write about it while it's still available. But I never thought that was a real thing. The Cowboys keep saying, they're going to take care of George Pickens here soon enough. I would be shocked if he was on the free agent market at receiver. But yeah, the Pitts thing, not a big surprise. I think more realistic guys like Isaiah Likely, obviously Njoku's already been, said he's not coming back to Cleveland. That's the kind of list, and it's not going to blow you away. But clearly the Commanders have a need there because of the Zach Ertz situation. It was already on a one-year deal anyway, late ACL injury that was very severe. They had a look there. And who knows, maybe with this new offense, Ben Sinnott will make a huge jump this year, and obviously they hope he will. They need him to, frankly, right? They need him to show that. So, but there's definitely need for another tight end here on this roster. It's just a matter of are you going to go grab it in free agency, or do you think you can draft it again and this time maybe a quicker impact?
I think you got to do both, right? I think you have a couple of guys in the building that should get fired off. I'm interested to see how John Bates goes. You know what I mean? Because when you're a good blocker, all it takes is for you to just
really good blocker.
Just get a couple passes thrown your way. So he may be able to kind of build his resume a bit. Not saying he needs to go full on passing guy, but to be able to be on the field more frequently, I would love to see his passing skills go up. One tight end that I've been slowly kind of poking my way through, this guy out of Georgia, Oscar Delp. All right, he's like 6'5", 245 or so, but he's fast. He's supposed to be like a 4'5", 4'6" guy. So I'm looking at an athletic tight end, similar to like a Kyle Pitts, that you can get out there, and he has some reps. He hadn't had a whole bunch of offense. He obviously was behind the Brock Bowers, but he comes from that type of a mold. So that's a guy I could see the Commanders kind of trying to add into the mix, get athletic at that tight end position and create some mismatches. Scott.
Of course, limited picks, sadly, for the Commanders. Still paying. Look, I don't mind paying off Laramie Tunsil. I mean, that was a good trade. That was a really good trade. I got no issues with that. So glad to see that. Maybe they can create some more pick opportunities as this thing goes along. We'll just have to wait and see. But exciting week. You'll hear from Dan Quinn. You'll hear from Adam Peters this week as well. So we'll break some of that down later in the week on the show. And obviously more news that will come out of the Combine. There always is. It is really the place where the tampering truly begins, let's be honest, with free agents. You can't tell me these guys are there with all these agents and there's not some free agent conversations going on. Come on, get out of here. There is. There is. So that's what is kind of the beginning of the real ramping up of the offseason. I know they can't officially do anything for another couple weeks, but this is really where the groundwork's being laid in a lot of cases for trades and for signings.
What do you think? What are you feeling how they're going to play it? Obviously, we've heard AP say we don't want to pay a whole lot of money to people we don't know, but there's reports that this could be an expensive offseason for the Commanders if they're trying to strike while the iron's hot, being inside of this window with JD5 being on that rookie contract, et cetera, et cetera. What's your inclination? You think this is going to be a spending spree, just run that credit card and get the best players we can, or what?
Well, I don't think it's a great draft. First of all, great free agent class for that, right? It's not a huge free agent class where you're going to hit all your needs anyway. But look, just based on the amount of people that are free agents on the team, they're going to be busy. I guess it just kind of, is your interpretation of what makes it splashy, like some people have reported. Again, just going off of what Adam Peters said, and I think the lessons maybe learned on that staff in San Francisco, I think they're probably a little unsure about going big on somebody they don't know that well. So it's probably going to be people that have had backgrounds in systems of people that are on the staff. If anything, if they're going to do that, you saw that with Javon Kinlaw obviously last year. So that's what I would think. I think there might be some a couple higher priced paid free agents, but I don't think they're going to go nuts just because I don't think the class looks that way. And again, you have to take care of your own guys. As well, the ones you want to keep, and you got a lot of holes to fill. So it's going to be active. I mean, look, year one with this group, they didn't spend a ton of money in free agency in terms of like one or two contracts, but they got a lot, right? There's a volume of players that they brought in, and they hit on a lot of them, and which kind of set up last year. But they were these shorter term deals too. So I'll be interested kind of more in the structuring, right? Are these all one show me deals again, or are we going to do multiple year contracts as well? I think that's the fascinating thing about all this. To come up, and then what holes can you fill ahead of time to maybe take the pressure off the draft part of it in terms of hole filling, whether you're talking about D-line, secondary. I still think linebacker is a big question. I don't know if Bobby Wagner's here. Maybe Bobby Wagner sees himself on a Super Bowl contender, like a more surefire Super Bowl contender, right? Yeah. Maybe that's where he sees himself instead of staying here for another season. Who knows? Yeah,
he may want to get back to the West Coast as well. So I know I will say I love the fact that he stayed in Washington for 2 seasons, because that last time he left Seattle, he was gone for a year and then went back. So, hey, I'd love to have Bobby there. I saw people on Twitter, folks were pushing for the fact saying he needs to be back. He's one of the top linebackers in the league. Another guy was like, well, let's see him in coverage. Well, I think, hell, you know what? Maybe this draft makes it where he doesn't have to be in coverage that much. You know what I mean? You can get younger, you're faster, blitz him, get somebody else behind that can do some covering. But I don't know. It's going to be exciting to see. It's going to be interesting to follow. Let's see more free agency tags pop up, franchise tags, I should say, as we roll this thing along throughout the week.
All right, Believe in Commanders podcast, part of the Believe Network, brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Give us a like, comment, and follow. And, of course, you can follow Anthony on the X at Rated Armstrong, myself at Jackson Sports. We appreciate your time. We'll talk to you later this week with more Combine news.